By the shores of the Caribbean, a mountain. Around its base, Colombia, torn apart by the cocaine trade and civil conflict. At its summit, the descendants of a once great American civilization. They say that for centuries they have kept watch over the earth. What do they mean? What are the secrets of their remarkable survival? This is my journey to find out. One of the first expeditions I ever took was to Colombia. When I was there, 35 years ago, I met an amazing indigenous people, and I've wondered about them ever since. They lived on a mountain, rising almost 6,000 meters from the northern plains of Colombia. They called themselves the Elder Brother, and claimed to be the last representatives of an ancient South American civilization, the Tayrona. I've always wanted to go back to the mountains and find out what became of the people. I mean, in the years since I was there, their land's been under siege by guerrillas and paramilitaries, cocaine traffickers. What became of the people? And perhaps more importantly, what became of their incredible belief systems? Well, finally, I've got a chance to go back and find out. The Elder Brothers don't like visitors, but this time, through contacts, they have asked me to come. I don't know why. As Director Graham Townsley and I arrive with the crew, we wonder what is in store for us. Santa Marta, on the Caribbean coast of Colombia. It's a jumping-off point for my journey up into the mountains of the Elder Brothers. There's an awful lot to like about Santa Marta. It's cheerful, loud, and full of life. Today it's a modern port city, but it was first settled by the Spanish nearly 500 years ago. Its beautiful old colonial center hides a dark secret. In the 16th century, these streets witnessed the birth of one of the first and most violent campaigns in the long, bloody conquest of South America. It's incredible to think that in 1501, just 8 or 9 years after Columbus discovered the Americas, the Spanish were here at this very beach in Santa Marta. And then in 1599, the governor of Santa Marta unleashed a Holocaust on the Tayrona. It was unbelievable, unprecedented, even in the conquest of the Americas. Children were fed to dogs. Mothers and daughters and grandmothers were burnt alive. The men were quartered, drawn and quartered at the stake. And yet, somehow, the Tayrona survived. Or did they? The Tayrona were truly one of the great indigenous civilizations of the ancient New World. The remains of the cities and roads they built over 1,000 years ago are still scattered all along the Colombian coastline. Is it really possible that such an ancient pre-Columbian culture could still be alive in the 21st century? If so, what are the secrets of such a remarkable cultural survival? This is what I want to find out on this trip. The Tayrona produced some of the finest gold work in all of South America. In sophistication, if not in size, they approached the Maya, Inca, and Aztec. If their descendants,
The Elder Brothers, really do represent that culture. They would be our last window onto the high civilizations of the ancient Americas. They live on the imposing mountain massif whose foothills rise behind the city, the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. Towering over the shores of northern Colombia, it's the tallest coastal mountain anywhere in the world. From foothills washed by warm Caribbean waters to the Sierra's snow-capped peaks, this spectacular mountain is a microcosm of South America. All the continent's ecosystems are here. All of its problems as well. For decades, its remote valleys have sheltered an array of armed and violent groups, from right-wing paramilitaries to cocaine traffickers and the infamous communist guerrillas of the FARC. In recent years, the Sierra has been bathed in blood as these outlaw groups and the Colombian army battle it out. So you don't travel into the Sierra lightly. It's a dangerous place. But just now there's a lull in the fighting, and it's my chance to find out what's happened to the Elder Brothers. What I hope to do is make a journey right up to the Paramo, the frozen valleys of the High Sierra. It's a journey very few outsiders have ever made. The Paramo is the heart of the world of the Elder Brothers. They don't like foreigners anywhere in their territory, and especially not in its sacred heartland. But my puzzling invitation gives me reason to hope. It would be the journey of a lifetime. Long before getting anywhere near the High Sierra, I have to pass through the dusty Colombian villages that ring the base of the mountain. After the massacre of the Tayrona in 1599, the people of the Sierra seemed to tumble into oblivion. The history books fall silent about the Sierra for almost 200 years. When travelers started to explore the mountains in the 19th century, they reported mysterious tribes dressed in white, ruled by their priests. The largest group called themselves the Arhuaco. And here they still are. I'm entering the territory of one of the most remarkable indigenous peoples of the Americas. About a third of the way up the mountain, at an old mission settlement called Nabusimake, the road ends. If I'm allowed to continue on my journey to the summit, from here on up, it'll be by foot and mule. Waiting for me is one of the Arhuaco contacts with whom I've been discussing our film journey, Danilo Villafaña. Danilo. Ah, qué bueno. Sí, Guillermo David, encantado.
Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto conocerse.
Por fin lo veo.
Sí, por fin. Nabusimake is a gateway to the Arhuaco world. The missionaries who built its cobbled streets and adobe houses are long gone, evicted by the Arawakos nearly 3 decades ago. I suddenly feel as if I've left the 21st century behind. Everyone here wears the traditional snow-white clothes and woven bags of the Arawako. The men greet each other by exchanging coca leaves, the sacred plant of all highland South America. Among themselves, they speak their own language, closely related to that of the Tayrona. Assimilation is clearly not the way the Arawako are going. There are about 20,000 Arawakos, and most of their lives are spent moving between villages and family farms above Nabusimake. In the warm lands lower down the mountain, the Arawakos grow plantains, peppers, and the tropical root crop manioc. Higher up, they cultivate cold weather crops, potatoes, onions, and grains. Wherever they can, they grow the plant which is a source of so much violence and so much beauty in their world, coca. Chemically treated on an industrial scale, its leaves yield cocaine. Chewed naturally, it is the mildest of stimulants. Coca research was what brought me here 35 years ago.
Now, when I first came to the Sierra, very little was known about the plant. I mean, amazingly, for all the negativity that had surrounded the plant, nobody had ever done a nutritional study until the mid-70s, when colleagues of mine and I at the Botanical Museum at Harvard did the first nutritional study, and what we found was simply astonishing. Yes, it had a small amount of cocaine hydrochloride in it, but it also was chock full of vitamins. It also had enzymes in it which enhanced the body's ability to digest carbohydrate at high elevation, which made it perfect for the diets of the mountains of South America that depend on various tubers, the potato most essentially. So, you know, coca is not a drug.
It's a food. As I've known for many years, chewing it is no more stimulating than having a cup of coffee. You never see an Arawako man without his bag of coca leaves and his poporo, the gourd he fills with burnt and powdered seashells. That powder is essentially calcium carbonate, which facilitates the release of the beneficial properties of the plant. One of the first things you notice in the Sierra is that while only women harvest coca, only men chew it. The clear distinction between the activities of men and women seems to be characteristic of the Arawako world. I noticed that only women sew bags. Only men sew hats and weave clothes. The Arawako believe that the whole world is permeated by this distinction and balance between male and female. It is an order of things which was dictated by the creator gods, Sarankwa, and the Great Mother. The Great Mother's commandments about the care of all things in nature are what the Arawakos call her law. It seems a miracle to me that it has survived through all these centuries of conflict. I finally get a chance to ask Danilo how his people have coped with the years of violence. He says they've been exhausted by it.
So the question is, when finally will they leave us in peace to live our lives? If it's not the church, it's the colonization of our lands. If it's not the colonization, it's government programs. If it's not the politics of the government, it's the violent groups who don't respect or recognize anybody. So we live constantly trying to avoid being hit from one side or the other.
Danilo makes it clear that their tradition has been their refuge from the violence. And what keeps it strong are their priests, the mamos.
Our society is directed by the mamos. So this war and the cost of this war touches us and affects us. But we have the strength to not get involved in it. The spiritual world, the world of mamos, and the world of guns don't go together.
If the mamos are behind everything in Arhuaco society, I wonder if they are also behind my invitation to come here. It's not long before I find out. I'm summoned to meet the chief priest of the Arhuacos. Danilo takes me to his homestead.
Muy buena día. ¿Cómo está? Guillermo Morales. Encantado. Bien, ¿cómo está?
Mama Kuncha is a reserved and quiet-spoken character. He wants to talk, but he says not here. We set off again for a nearby hillside.
Understand that we don't like people coming here and filming us. But if the younger brother doesn't find out who we are, how can he ever respect us? How will he know that the Great Mother made us guardians of her law? At the moment, younger brother knows nothing about it, which is why he's destroying the earth.
In the coming days, this remarkable message is driven home to me again and again. The Arhuaco Mamos believe they are the guardians of the world, that their rituals literally maintain the balance and fertility of life. They want us, who they call the younger brother, to know this, respect them for the work they do, and listen to what they have to say.
Y los sabios siempre decía que
the ancestors said that one day younger brother will wake up, but only when the violence of nature is on top of him. That's when he'll wake up. What are we going to do? Well, we're not going to fight. We just want to make people understand. Will younger brother understand or not? We don't know. But we're trying hard, speaking calmly to your cameras so that hopefully the whole world will listen.
I tell the Arhuaco that I am happy and honored to help communicate their mission to the younger brother, but that I want to understand more about the laws of Saranqua and the Great Mother. I want to see for myself how they have maintained this unbroken tradition for so long. Mama Kuncha tells me that in a few days, some of his apprentice priests are being taken on a pilgrimage up to the sacred lakes of the High Sierra. Just this once, he will allow me to go along with them to observe how they train the young men on whom all this responsibility will fall. It is the journey I had hoped for, right up to the frozen Paramos, the heart of the world of the elder brother. To get the crew and all the film gear up the mountain is a major logistical challenge. Graham is also an anthropologist and has filmed before in the Sierra. With the Arhuacos, he has planned a mule train. Colombian camera assistant Peter Diaz-Porta oversees the loading. It's no small feat. But finally it's done, and we're on our way. We'll rendezvous with more Arhuacos and the apprentice priests further up the mountain. The first day's trek will take us from about 1,200 meters up to 3,000 meters. These high valleys of the Sierra are spectacular, but they also hold danger.
The situation in the Sierra, the cause of the violence, is that you have on the one hand the army and the remnants of the paramilitaries down below, and you have the FARC, or the leftist guerrillas, up above. We are on our way to a sacred destination. We hope we don't run into the FARC. Just 5 days ago, 6 tourists were kidnapped in another part of the country. Hopefully we will not have any encounter, but it is a little nerve-wracking, so we're going to be very cautious.
But as we climb up into the high meadows above the tree line, all thoughts of the outside world fade. We seem to be entering a silent world of high peaks and clouds that belongs only to the Arhuacos. Finally, we arrive at the farm where we'll be spending the night. As the temperatures outside drop towards freezing, the Arhuacos crowd around a fire and discuss the journey ahead. Mama Camilo is leading the pilgrimage. He will be instructing 2 young apprentice mamos on how to make offerings, the correct prayers and attitudes to the spirits of the mountains. Next morning, Mama Camilo shows the apprentices the offerings they must make. Wrapped in corn husks, they are all objects from the sea in the tropical plains at the base of the mountain. Camilo explains that they must offer these at the high lakes and then bring objects from the summit of the mountains to offer at the sea. It seems that with their pilgrimages and offerings, the Arhuaco try to bind together their world in one great spiritual web of reciprocity. As I soon discover, that spiritual web connecting all parts of the Sierra mirrors a much more concrete one.
What you see here is the entire exchange system of the Sierra Nevada, from the high paramos down to the lowlands. And this is an incredible storehouse of food and products. Sacks of beans and corn, huge mounds of panela, which is the raw sugar, huge squashes clearly brought from down below, plantains from down below, dried yucca from down below. Over here, fava beans from down
below, and wool from the heights, potatoes, and then back there, huge mounds of salt. And all of this has been traded for with his one product, and that is the fact that he can grow onions here. And so what you're seeing here is the entire economic exchange system of the mountains, where products move up and down this ecological gradient. So with their exchanges and offerings, the Arhuaco weave together the world of things and the world of spirits. They say they have been making these pilgrimages to the lakes of the High Sierra ever since the time of their ancestors, the Tayrona. There is no reason to doubt them. At about 4,000 meters, we enter the Paramo, the high-altitude land of rock, tussock grasses, and dwarf shrubs, which is the gateway to the sacred heartland of the Elder Brother. Finally, the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra come into view. At almost 6,000 meters, the highest mountains in Colombia. It was incredible as we crested the hill and came down here and saw for the first time the peaks of the Sierra Nevada. Everybody became incredibly animated, and many of them will have never seen this vista. And you could just sense their excitement. For them to come up here is to really come to the heart of their world. As we move on toward the sacred lakes, the peace of the mountains settles on us. We ride on in silence. The world of the younger brother seems a million miles away. As the sun falls toward the horizon, we get to a tiny Arhuaco village, which seems carved out of the barren hillsides of the Paramo. It will be our last stop before the lakes. But we discover that the world of the younger brother is not as far away as we'd hoped. We're only one day from the sacred lakes, but we've just had the disturbing news that 2 days ago, 2 members of the FARC came down through this area looking for us. Somehow, the guerrillas have learned of our journey and are waiting for us. Another kidnapping of foreigners is clearly their intention. We all discuss the options. There aren't that many of them. We've obviously got to get off the mountain as fast as possible. But how? The Mamos contemplate and consult the spirits. Quickly, they come up with their answer. Taking a very unusual route, we'll set out as soon as night falls and ride through the dawn. But it's heartbreaking to have to leave the pilgrimage and miss the pagamentos, the offerings, which are its climax. So what we're going to do is send Roberto, a Wiwa cameraman who's been working with us on this production, up to the sacred lakes, where hopefully he'll be able to film the pagamentos, which are so important, which we were so keen to document. We saddle up for a tense ride, up and down treacherous mountain trails in the darkness. The Arhuacos lead us through a frozen landscape of towering bluffs and deep ravines. Hopefully by morning, we'll be out of danger. Just after dawn, we finally get to the lower reaches of the mountain, where sometimes the army patrols and the guerrillas are unlikely to follow us. But there was another close call along the way. It's 9:15 and we've basically been running all night long. Just as the sun rose around 5:30, we came across a shoulder with this extraordinary vista of the entire Sierra Nevada enveloped in cloud. And just as we began to relax, suddenly we saw a FARC soldier coming up the draw to our left. He hadn't seen us, and so we quickly raced to get behind a height of land, hoping that the sunlight would have blinded him so he couldn't have seen us on the skyline. And that obviously was nerve-wracking, and it only caused us to move even faster out of the mountains. And now finally we're up at this height of land, at this down looking over the valley of Namasimike in relative safety. When we arrive in Namasimake, we discover that it's been occupied by the army. We've stumbled into a major military operation against the FARC. Arhuaco territory has been turned into a battleground. The frustration of having to leave the pilgrimage is huge. We'll join the pilgrims once again when they come down from the Paramos to make their offerings to the sea. But in the meantime, the military presence makes it hard to go on working, and we can't stand to wait, doing nothing. Our brush with the FARC has given us a slight taste of what the Arhuacos endure all the time. I decide to head for the capital, Bogota, in search of people who can help me understand the violent history of the Sierra.
Bueno, Alfredo, la violencia en Colombia.
Sociologist Alfredo Molano has been studying it for many years.
It all started in the 1950s, when thousands of peasants who were refugees from the violence in the interior of the country arrived in the Sierra. They started to push out the Indians, who had to move higher on the mountain. As the peasants pushed out the Indians, the landowners pushed out the peasants. So there was a sort of perfect storm of forces in the Sierra, just like in the whole country. And always at the center of that combination of forces was violence.
In the 1970s, the violence was intensified by a new phenomenon, the drug trade. Although that trade came to be dominated by Colombian traffickers, Alfredo believes foreigners were implicated from the beginning.
The first drug to arrive in the Sierra was marijuana. Later, the traffickers arrived who took it to the United States. They were often pilots who'd been in Vietnam, who knew marijuana and who knew the market. They got together with the Colombian smugglers who had been in the Sierra since the 18th century. After that came cocaine.
Not everyone agrees with Alfredo about the origins of the drug trade, but there is no doubt that what sustains it today is foreign demand, largely from the United States and Europe. That demand channels vast profits, not just to drug traffickers, but to paramilitaries and left-wing guerrillas. So the violence engulfing Colombia and the elder brother today is not just a Colombian problem, it's a global one. As I discover the tragic story of civil conflict in Colombia, high on the Paramo of the Sierra, Wiwa cameraman Roberto is filming the pilgrims as they climb higher. Mama Camilo and the two apprentices are approaching their destination, the sacred lakes where they will make their offerings. At this altitude, the wind blows often and hard. The Arawakos call it the breath of the Great Mother. In the thin air of the Paramo, they say they feel her presence everywhere. Finally, they arrive.
We've come here to make the offerings which preserve life. Animals, plants, trees, everything. This lake is the center of the whole mountain. It all depends on this place. This is where the spirit guardians live, who check to see if the law of the Great Mother is being obeyed.
The apprentices have brought cotton, seashells, and the pods of tropical plants from the coast. They pray, holding small bundles of cotton in their hands. It is a symbol of the Great Mother, who, they say, taught humans how to spin. Her commandment was to protect everything she had woven. This is her law. The circular movement of hands recalls the moment when the Great Mother spun the universe into being.
So that in time life doesn't end, so that the spirits of things don't end. We've come here to give life with our offerings. All elder brothers on the mountain should come here to speak to the Great Mother, no matter where they live. Here we bring the best of us, the purest of our thoughts, and plant them.
When the offerings have been placed, the pilgrims collect the leaves of Espilitia, the defining plant of the Paramo. These will become the offerings they make far below to the sea. It's hard to imagine a people more identified with their environment. The white hats they wear so religiously represent the snow peaks of their mountains. They carry the sea with them in the shells inside their poporos. The Arhuacos are always trying to unite the opposites of their world. Finally, it's time to leave. Just as they greet each other with coca leaves, they say farewell to the spirits of the mountain with the same gesture. Then they set off back towards Nabusimake and the world of the younger brother. Is there a place, I wonder, for such a devotional way of life in the modern world? Back in Bogota, I'm on my way to visit one of the most influential politicians in Colombia, ex-Minister of Defense and presidential candidate Rafael Pardo. I want to know what the Colombian government thinks about the elder brother.
Is known as a peaceful and a wise communities, and this is highly respected in the rest of Colombia.
And isn't it true that, for example, President Pastrana, when he was first elected, made a journey to the mountains to pay homage to the Mamos?
Yes, all the last 5 or 6 presidents of Colombia have their some of special journey to the Sierra Nevada.
As I return to Santa Marta, I'm still astonished by the image of successive Colombian presidents making pilgrimages to the Sierra to meet the Mamos and ask for their blessings. Clearly, in recent years, the elder brothers have emerged as a symbol of the nation's hopes for peace. But as political leader Rogelio Mejia makes clear to me, that has not stopped the killing.
In 2002, when the violence between the guerrillas and the paramilitaries and the army was at its strongest, we lost 24 Arhuacos, Mamos and leaders, assassinated directly by the FARC. Paramilitaries, 48 Arhuacos, 360 Canquamos, and 60 Cogis. These last years, the killings of Indians has got even worse. But we're still here.
It's not surprising that the Arhuacos are worried about the destruction of their world. But what is surprising is their feeling of responsibility for saving it.
Serancua nos dejó aquí los 4.
Serancua left us, the 4 tribes of the elder brothers, here to protect the world. He said to us, "You're the ones who have to cancel the debt of the younger brother. Younger brother doesn't have the understanding to cancel his debt with nature. You, the ones who know how to chew coca, you have to do it for him."
I started out my journey with a question. Was it possible that the ancient culture of the Tayrona had really survived into the 21st century? I now realize it was a wrong question. No culture stays the same for 500 years. But do the elder brothers still walk on the paths laid out for them by the Tayrona? They certainly do. I think that one of the reasons for the survival of that tradition is that they know it is their only refuge from the threatening forces around them. Perhaps they have turned the culture of their ancestors into something even more remarkable. The Tayrona, we know, were a warlike people who sent armies against the Spanish. The elder brother has taken that sophisticated, fierce culture and turned it into a devotional culture of peace. After days traveling, The pilgrims finally arrived at the seashore with the sacred bundles of plants from the Paramo. They are completing the great cycle of offerings and exchanges, which they feel nurtures not just their world, but the whole world. Their dedication to their mission astonishes me. On the sacred rock where for centuries the elder brothers have made offerings to the Mother of the Sea, a discotheque and high-rise have been built. It doesn't stop them. But with the 21st century pressing in hard, will the elder brothers be able to go on resisting? If we, the younger brothers, could only learn to respect them and their feelings for the earth, who knows? The people of the Sierra have kept alive the laws of Saranqua and the Great Mother for centuries. Perhaps these young priests will be able to keep them safe for generations to come.